Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from Sweden, and welcome to this week's live stream. And I see you are digging this, Mike.
Yeah. If we
Yeah,
went back and just did that for another 3 minutes, like I'm in. I'm game. I'm game for that.
yeah, your game. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited for this week's live stream. And before we get started, let us know where you are tuning in from. I know we have TA lovers all around the world, so just hit us up, show us in the
Yeah.
comment section. Okay, Mike, we have, let's see, South Africa, we have the US, UK, we have Norway. Okay, guys, keep them coming. Yeah, and I'm very excited to be back. This is going to be so much fun. We'll give everyone a couple of minutes, just as I mentioned. But before we do that, let's just introduce Mike, Batman, Cohen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. It's in my head, and like I'm just like
Yeah,
I need you to send that to me at some point. I'm
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
rock. I'm gonna do that
You
in one of
can
my
do your
cycling
gym.
classes.
Yeah. Your cycle classes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm gonna have everybody listen to that. So that's
Perfect,
amazing.
perfect. Yeah. And guys, in this session, we welcome you to send all your curious questions regarding data, KPIs, metrics in TA. This is truly your moment, so don't be shy. And if you'd like all the key takeaways from this session, please comment summary in the comment section, and we will make sure to send it over to you. Okay, Batman. Could we just pretend like I don't know anything about you? I don't know
Yeah.
who you are, what's your
Yeah.
purpose in the TA industry? Just hit
Sure.
us up. Give us.
Sure. This is really weird that you have me on your show and you don't know anything about me, man.
Yeah, I
This is
don't.
awkward. Yeah. I am an owner of a company that does sourcing on demand. So we are, I believe, one of the most advanced sourcing companies on the planet.
Ooh.
And we provide sourcing functionality globally, anything that is an hourly work. And one of our big things, and one of my personal big things, is partnering with technology companies. So we have more tech partnerships than any company on the planet that includes any of the big tech companies. So it's awesome. Love talking at conferences. I love helping, and I do some recruitment training for very select clients because it's a little bit of a time suck. I'm also an indoor cycling instructor, I think, as I kind of alluded to. What you're going to notice about a lot of my hobbies is they involve me being the center of attention and typically electronic music. That's not a coincidence.
Not a coincidence why you're here, because I'm
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's actually that's totally correct. I'm a dog lover. I've got two awesome puppies. I've got a totally kick-ass wife who's way cooler than I am actually.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, that's about it. I have a few passions every year. I kind of pick a couple of things that I'm like super honed in on and focused on. And this
Hmm.
year it's D&I hiring and data and metrics.
Cool.
Those are the ones. Yep. So I'm
Cool.
wearing my Think Differently shirt. It's supporting ADHD and my fellow neurodiverse friends. So
Cool. Cool.
yeah.
So, Batman, for everyone not knowing, why are you Batman? And could you tell us how this is impacting TA?
Yeah. So I think the quote goes, "Always be yourself, unless you can be Batman, then always be
Mhm.
Batman."
Okay,
Um,
okay.
yeah. So I'll try to make this really short.
Ah,
It
ah,
was like 5 years ago. Oh, yes, that's phenomenal. I keep this by my desk, just for instances like this where like I need to like
yes!
pop that on. Yeah, that's real life. So I was looking to brand myself like 5 years ago as a human, and our former president Donald Trump. Uh,
Yeah.
had a
Performer.
lawyer who was yeah, I was like had a lawyer who started doing these like really crass interviews, and his name was Michael Cohen, and I was like, shit. I was like, well, that's not going to work anymore. So I never read comics as a kid. First one I read, I was 19. It was a Batman comic, and psychologically, I think he is phenomenal. He's also the world's greatest detective, right?
Huh?
Like that's how he came about in the 30s, and that's kind of what I do for a living. So
Yeah,
I like threw it out there. I was like, all right, let's jump in and see what happens, and it stuck.
it is. It is. How did you like my Catwoman trial?
I love it. Yeah, you got the part.
Yeah, I left out the latex because I thought like, no, let's keep it like HR,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah,
appropriate.
yeah, yeah. That would change the ambiance of the meeting.
It would. It
For
would.
sure, yeah.
Sadly, it would. I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was my part, it's Rick. Um, yeah, but let's get started, Mike. Into this
Yeah.
topic, we're going to dig into metrics, KPIs, the difference between it, and data in TA. And we have different levels of knowledge here. I have a quite high-end network, knowing and working data-driven with TA, but let's just make it possible for everyone to tune in, like where their organization is at, to have something to, add on to their strategy. So,
Yeah.
like first and foremost, what is recruitment KPIs? Should we just start there?
Yeah, and I think that this is a great starting point and a great thing that I learned this year actually as I was doing my
Mm,
research for this. I've for my entire life used KPI and metric interchangeably.
mm,
And it winds up they're not interchangeable. They're completely different things. Yeah. So like we all know what a goal is, right? Goal is like the end result. You want to achieve this thing. That's your goal.
mm,
Cool. Now, interestingly enough, the KPI is going to measure the strategic, how are you getting towards that goal, right? And so the way I always think about it is KPIs are like that heart rate monitor in the hospital,
mm.
right? You see it and it starts speeding up and you're like, oh, that's not good. But you don't actually know it's wrong. You just know that like, uh-oh, right? And it goes flat and you're like, oh, that's really not good, right? But
Mm.
again, you don't know what's wrong. You
No, no,
just
no.
know that like, uh-oh, we're in bad shape, right?
Yeah.
The the metrics, on the other hand, are the tactical pieces. Those are going to tell you how are you doing achieving your KPIs to hit your goals. And the
Mm.
metrics, the problem that most organizations have, and I mean most, they hold recruiters and sourcers accountable to KPIs, not metrics, right? So
Yeah.
KPIs are awesome and you should track them. Leadership, you should track them. Recruiters, you should also track them, but they are not what you hold a recruiter or sourcer accountable to. They're not directly controllable, right? Like, oh, well, we
Mm.
need to make more placements. Duh. Everyone needs to make more placements. That doesn't mean anything. When you tell me that, I just go, yeah, okay. So, uh, cool. I'll
Mm.
just make more placements happen, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
versus a metric, you're able to kind of dig in a little bit more and understand like, okay, what's happening. And so, I compiled a huge list of like metrics and KPIs. I'm going to read a
Mm.
few of them. I've got them on a screen over here. So if you see me looking over here, it's not my ADHD. It's I'm actually reading something. So you have things like how many searches did you run? How many messages did you send? How many submissions did you make or qualification calls? How many
Mm.
interviews did you have? Those are KPIs. They are not metrics.
Yes.
Important to know, not to hold people accountable to, however. Easiest way to remember this, metrics have a percentage sign after them.
Mm.
So if you're holding your recruiters to a number without a percentage sign, understand that you're holding them to KPIs. In which case, you're basically telling them, I need you to work harder. Just work harder. Figure it out, right?
Mm.
As
Mm.
opposed to, hey, where's the bottleneck? Where's the breakdown here? Where is the part within this process or within the microcosm of this section that we need to focus on?
Mhm.
And so, I always allude to like the idea of like a treadmill, right? A
Yeah.
treadmill generates watts when you run, right? Or a cycle
Yeah. Yeah.
generates watts. So your options as an employee and as an employer is, do you run faster on the treadmill to generate more watts? Because you can only run so fast. I don't care who you are. You can only run so fast, right? If I'm running at 12 miles an hour on a treadmill, I've got a solid like 20, 30 seconds before I tumble
Mm.
backwards off the treadmill. But what if instead you made the treadmill more efficient? So the
Mm.
treadmill generated more watts for running at 6 miles an hour, or adding another treadmill into the mix to help with a bottleneck at a certain point, right? Like adding a new technology.
Mm.
And so people unfortunately get fixated on this idea of like, well, how many emails did you send?
Mm.
How many submissions did you make? And it's like, who cares? The,
Yeah.
the number actually just doesn't matter, right? I've got a
Mm.
friend at one of the large tech companies. I don't want to blow up anybody's spot.
Mm.
Um, who's making these monster hires. Like I'm talking like manager, director level and above in technology, right? In the hardest to fill locations in the world, San
Mm.
Francisco, Seattle, New York, right? And the feedback he was given was, why didn't you send 200 messages last week? Are are you kidding right now? Like, are you kidding? Like, the reason he didn't do that is because he sent 40 messages and got 30 responses back.
Yeah.
That's if we're mathing
Mm.
at a high level, that's a 75% response rate. Your 200 messages with a 20% response rate, like, you're right around that same number. You just had to do like 4 times as much work.
Yeah. Wouldn't
So,
even be a question in sales, right? Because we're over that in sales. It's efficiency, right?
yeah. Yeah, I
But
think it depends on the organization still,
yeah,
right?
of
I
course.
think advanced companies, right? Your company's probably in that boat, but like
Mm.
it's not the 90s anymore, right? When I started, it was that whole like smile and dial, like make 100 calls. It's
Yeah.
like,
Mm.
why? I'd rather
Mm.
make 10 calls and get the same output. So
Yeah.
how do you do less work
Mm.
with more output? You're looking at your conversions. That's
Yeah.
all you care about.
Yeah.
But people don't do that. They're only looking at like, well, you only made 10 calls. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
but
Correct.
who
Correct.
cares?
So in that, like how people think and form their instructions to their TA department, could you just like give us the scope on why and how you would like transfer coming into working data driven in
Mm,
this momentum?
hmm hmm Yeah. So I think uh, leadership wants results, which makes sense. KPIs measure results, which is
Mm.
great.
Mm.
I think to be a data driven organization, though, you have to understand where to attack the problem. Because if you're telling me, well, we don't have enough candidates, that's not a problem. That's a bad KPI, which not good for sure, but that doesn't identify a problem. That's a flat heart rate on the
Mm.
monitor, right?
Mm.
So you're like, hey, this isn't good.
Mm.
What's wrong with the person? So instead of looking at those numbers, are we going back to the beginning and saying, hey, how many profiles do you have to view to message one, right? Because if you have to view 20 profiles to send one message, your sourcing sucks,
Mm.
right? Like you need either sourcing training, you need new technology, or a new human, right? One of the three, right? Same thing when you're looking at your messaging, and it's
Mm.
like, well, who cares how many messages you sent? What's your open rate and what's your response rate? Because your open rate tells me how good your subject lines are. Your
Yeah.
response rate tells me how good your targeting is, and
Mm.
it tells me how good your messaging is. So if you're getting 200 messages sent, but you're only getting a 10% response rate, hey, I've diagnosed the problem. The problem is your messaging sucks.
Yeah.
So let's attack the problem. And what winds up happening is people throw out these. First off, they're tracking KPIs, holding people to KPIs, which is dumb. Second, they're throwing out KPIs based on zero data. Every time I hear somebody who goes, "You need to send 200 messages," I'm like, "Why 200? Why
Yeah.
not 193? Why not 211?" Right? Why? Because it's a round number. And at some point, you sat around the table with a bunch of other people who have no
Yeah.
idea what they're talking
Yeah.
about and went, I don't know, 200. That sounds good, right? Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. Yeah. 200. Let's do 200. That's like 40 a day. Why? Why is that the number? Right?
Mm.
And that's every time I hear that 10,
Yeah.
20,
Yeah.
15, 50. I'm like, you just made that crap up. You didn't like, there is no
Yeah,
science
for
there.
sure. I mean, if an efficient hiring process, like supported with good quality recruitment data, will ensure your business to make better, hiring decisions and ensure you stay on top of your competition. And with all, like from my perspective, like recruitment marketing, you need to measure everything to understand which like stages actually works and that doesn't work, and to know how to adjust and like reach maximum return on investment. And that is not something a figure you take from the open air. That is something you have to analyze. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, preach. You can mic drop that. That's exactly right. Where is your thing breaking down? How do you fix the thing?
Yes, yes.
Yep.
Okay, so in quick response to like start working with data, how do you get over fear working with data? Just a quick one.
How do you get over fear working with data? Understand that in the beginning, it's going to be really uncomfortable for you.
Yep.
It's not you, it's everybody in the beginning. That's okay. Just try to get comfortable with the discomfort. It's not going to last forever.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah,
So nothing, not response of soft organizations. We're not a soft organization. We're just gonna get data comfortable, right?
correct. It's a great way to
Uh,
put it.
Mike, I really like how you like challenge your customers in how you can hold your business partner, in this case, accountable when you have data to show and work around. Could you just elaborate around this?
Yeah. So we track on the sourcing side, right? It's all we do, and we track every piece of data. What platform we used, what Boolean string we used to find exactly what candidates, why we tagged particular candidates out, why we think some are great, why we don't think some are great, right? So we use all of that data in conversation because I think you and I had discussed this too often. You have two people coming at a conversation doing this,
Yeah.
and both of them are equally as uninformed. And we did this at SourceCon. I don't know, the last time we were able to be humans and meet in person. And we had a director level TA, a leader, and we had a sourcer.
Mm.
And I asked each of them, like, "Hey, sourcer, like, how many candidates do you think you should be submitting a week?" And they're like, "We should be submitting somewhere between 5 and 10 candidates."
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, director, how do you feel about that?" And they're like, "Are you kidding? 1 to 2 a day? Like, you should be at least submitting 15 to 20 a day." And I was like, "Great, sourcer, how do you feel about that?" Right? And the sourcer was like, 15 to 20. I was like, how am I possibly going to keep up with my recs and do 15 to 20 a day? That's not possible. And I got to look at both of them and be like, hey guys, here's a cool fact. Both of you are completely full of shit because you have no idea why you're throwing that number out. You just picked a number that sounded
Yeah.
good and was
Yeah.
divisible by 5. That was your criteria, right? Like, has to be a number, has to be divisible by 5. Awesome. Let's make it that number. As opposed to, hey, we've looked back throughout these roles, these
Yeah.
types of roles, these locations, and we've determined that historically this has been successful. Prove us wrong with your efficiency. I'll gladly change the numbers.
Yes, yes. Start in the right end always. It's, I see gut feeling in every decision being made. It's like I don't feel that I can find my candidates here because I'm not using
Yeah.
Facebook myself. So, they're not there.
There
And
are
I'm like,
no more. I looked at every candidate on LinkedIn and I'm like, really? I'm like, show me, right? And that's what we do with our hire managers. They're
yeah.
like, really? I'm like, yeah, here's the 834 profiles we looked at. Here's the search strings we ran to look at
Mm,
these 834. Here's the reason we eliminated these 630 from the list, like the exact reason for each one.
yeah.
Please let me know where I'm wrong because you telling me that I know they're out there.
Mm, mm.
Sure, show me.
Show me. So, if we were to give 3 examples of, in this case, KPIs an organization should keep track on, are what's your like the most important ones you'd say?
Yeah. Hires as a KPI is obviously going to be number one for me. I think when I'm literally looking at a list right now of
Mm,
all of these. I think the number of interviews is going to be really important. So the number of interviews that you have, obviously, I want to see it in reference to hires, but how many interviews are you doing?
yeah.
And then the other one is probably the number of messages being sent,
Hmm.
total messages sent, because that's a very top of funnel function and everything's going to trickle down from that number and the efficacy and efficiency of that number.
Cool. Those are
Yeah.
your most important ones.
Yeah, I mean, I don't track any of those because I don't
Yeah.
care about the KPIs personally. I only care about the metrics, but like
Yep.
sure, if you were going to track them as like your pulse of like how things are doing,
Yeah.
those would probably be my big 3.
Okay, cool. Mine would be, since we're a bit, in top of the funnel, I'd say cost per candidate, of
Mhm.
course, drop-off rate on your career page,
Mhm.
critical, and conversation rate of the applications being made. So we're a bit more data-driven into
Okay.
this. Doing recruitment marketing, enabling
Mhm.
this would be like, I would actually throw in this, Mike. Okay, so we have a periodic system been made. This is hot, like really hot. We've made a periodic system for TA KPIs. Yeah, you're sweating. that you actually can print out and have on your desk. Should this maybe be included in the summary? Like my top 11 KPIs and metrics, of course, metrics for, in a periodic system for TA. Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I will
Yeah,
include this in the
I can
summary.
send you mine also. I have a question for you actually based on what you
Yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Truly curious on this. How do you measure cost of hire?
It is a wide question. It is a wide question, and it is reportedly back to the organization. I'd say you have to work with the ATS, of course, and it's about efficiency and, of course, when they are up to speed and delivering out in the organization, right? So I'd say I have a wide answer for this, and I have to include it in the summary because it's so many paragraphs coming to it. But yeah, that is a hugely great question for sure.
Yeah, it's because I find that when people do that, they're like, well, LinkedIn costs us this amount of money per job post. And so we hired from that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, but how many
but
human hours did it take
yes,
to go
yes,
through the other 99.9% of the applicants who totally sucked and then respond to all of them, and then update all of the notes in the
yeah,
ATS
yeah,
from there and then to post, right? So you're like, well, it only cost us, $5,000 because of the posting. And I'm like, yeah, and then the other $30,000 in
yeah, yeah,
hours of your
100,
employees working through
100.
that, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I'd say like I'd say like job listing versus social media. It's like efficiency of where to post, right? Publish and do your job ad. So for instance, if I put like $100 on a job listing site and I get half applicant from there, and I go for automated recruitment marketing as of Adway and social media, I'd say my budget is super much more efficient because I see the quality of hires coming from there. So yeah, it's a web question. It's like you don't pay for the ATS every day, right? And all that. So
Exactly.
yeah, you have to include these factors. But I really like it, and this is why you're number one in the game, Batman.
Hey,
Okay, next one. If I were to say that we have to base our strategies on efficiency, how would you answer me?
it's a good question. So I think the efficiency pieces would be around turn rates. And I think that people always ask me, like, well, what's a good response rate? I'm like, I don't know. How senior are people? What type of roles are you looking for? Where are you looking for them?
Which
How great are your
country?
Glassdoor reviews, right? And so if you're gonna base it on efficiency, this is part of the discomfort, guys. This is gonna come in that beginning stage where you're like, oh, this sucks. Am I doing this right? Do I suck at my job? Like, you don't
Mm,
suck at your job. You're awesome. So part of it's going to be, hey, how efficient are each of my people at
yeah.
each stage of the process? And there's not going to be a one size fits all. You're going to have some folks who are a spray and pray who are still effective. They just need to do more input to get more
Mm,
output. You're going to have other folks who are snipers and they have to do way less input to get the same amount of output.
yeah.
Now, the goal is to get the people who have all this input, get the input down while keeping the
Mm,
output the same. The goal for the people who put a little bit of input and get a ton of output is increase the amount of input, right? But
mm,
but at the end of the day, if you don't even know which of your people align in which of those areas at which stage,
yeah.
how are you possibly going to alter, change, grow, introduce new technologies,
Mm,
etc.,
mm,
to increase their efficacy? Are you using KPIs and metrics to hold your folks accountable to say that are you working, or are you using them to say, hey, I assume that you're doing the best you can with the tools at your disposal. What can I do to help you be better? And if that's
yeah.
not your approach, then ignore everything I've said. Keep managing people to KPIs. And when all of your people leave and are totally burnt out, come back to this recording and just re listen again.
That's just weird. What preach? You could do the applause thing here. Could you do the applause?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely.
I need to get that. That's a
Yeah.
cool feature. And so
Thanks.
yeah, but I mean Batman, like if I were to just ask you a question into this, if so for instance, I preach you have to design a candidate journey where human touch points are necessary and you have to filter it, and where tools and automation are the best appropriate way. So if well in my opinion, since I do data driven recruitment marketing, getting qualified candidates to the sourcers, right, spending
Yep.
time with much more relevant candidates, I'd say hands off as soon as possible. What did you say?
I say that tools do a job, not your job. So if the tool is solving a problem,
Mm.
dope. If you're using the tool as a crutch for you having to do your job, not dope. Don't do that. And if you want the easiest way to think about this,
Mm.
think about your recruitment in 3 layers. You have your sourcing layer, then you have your messaging layer, and then you have your candidate and process data layer. Now, the goal is to have a unified layer for each of these. All sourcing data goes through here. This thing doesn't exist yet. It's on my roadmap to eventually build a product that does this. Give me like 3 years. The messaging should all be through
Mm.
an email automation tool. I know a lot of people use CRMs. I do not understand why people use CRMs. No one's been able to explain it to me yet,
No.
where I haven't been able to say, like, oh, cool. So you did a shitty job using your ATS, and now you're just going to throw a CRM on top of it. Awesome. Unless you have Workday, in which case you need a CRM.
Okay.
And then, so all messaging goes through there. So it tracks all of the data, makes everything reportable. And then once you go through the messaging, any other interaction with the candidate goes into that data layer, which is typically your ATS, right? So if you think about things like, okay, how are we acquiring this data? How are we normalizing the data? And how are we using the data? Great. Any tools that can help you with that. Messaging. How are we sending the data? How are we tracking the data? How are we storing the data? Any tool that can help you with that. ATS can be any technology you're thinking of that helps you acquire, store, normalize, track, and report on data.
Mm. Preach, preach. Hey,
Ooh,
Mister, time is running. We have a lot of comments, a lot of questions, and a lot of people in right now. It's super fun. Let's dig
yeah,
into questions because we need
yeah.
to get going with them. And then I want you to think about your 2 most important takeaways from this session.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Cool. So we have our beloved Anna Stenback. She's an
Hi,
talent,
Anna.
yes, talent advisor, keynote speaker, and author, and ex-Facebook TA manager. So the question for you, Mike, is it might be interesting to hear something about metrics and KPI linked to diversity. Sit down, you can't dance. Depending on the country and the legislation, certain measurement values or data can be difficult to capture, but it would be interesting to get some good concrete examples of what Batman has seen works. And I know you love this topic.
I do say Anna just took like my 2 hot topics for the year and mashed them into one question, which is I love you, Anna. I'll give you 20
Yeah,
bucks later.
I give you 1 minute, 1 minute on this.
Okay. So the important thing to measure with D&I is across the board. How are you approaching the entire process and workflow? B, what data are you capturing in terms of not just how you're attacking the call or the process, but what are the steps you're taking to ensure that you're getting diverse candidates? How is your messaging being approached to that? What do your
Mhm.
response rates look like? And the biggest piece is, what are your KPIs and metrics actually telling you about the efficacy of what you're doing? Because a lot of companies say, oh yeah, we're committed to diversity, sourcing and hiring. And it's like,
Yeah.
great, show us the metrics. Oh, well,
Yeah.
we're making 30% of our hires are diverse candidates. I'm like, great, show us the metrics.
Mm.
Show us how many people you're messaging that are
Mm.
diverse versus not diverse, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're like, well, yeah, we made 30% of our hires, but you're sending 80% to diverse candidates, your diverse sourcing actually sucks. You're not good at
Mm.
it, right?
Mm.
And conversely, if you're sending out 10% of your messaging and getting 30% of those hires, well, then that's great. You're really effective at it. But like, why is it only 10% if you have such a
Mm.
strong commitment to it?
Mm.
So I think that's my 1 minute answer. Sorry, I could keep going. I'm not gonna.
That's perfect. My addition
Yeah.
would be D&I is not TA's responsibility. It's not. But it helps if we can start helping. They know it, yes. But we can help lay a foundation. Doesn't, if you source and recruit 100 qualified candidates from diverse groups and they can't stay because you don't have a D&I culture, it should be a joint OKR. That's like applaud right there. Thank
Yep.
you. Yep.
Love this.
Thank you.
I feel the same way. I'm actually working with Torrin Ellis and a few others on a blind hiring process that's going to completely.
Mm.
I'm telling you, it's going to change the world in how you approach the hiring process to
Wow.
eliminate within like a very small percentage
Mm.
bias, unconscious or otherwise, in the process.
Smooth, smooth.
Yeah.
Speaking of working, I believe we have Abdullah Sharif with us. He's the CEO at the Recruiters Conference architect at Pakistan Sourcing Summit that I think you could be or maybe or want to attend, Batman. We don't know. The question
That's right.
are, we are really thankful if Mike recommends some TA metrics, especially he said metrics. So specifically for recruitment consulting to show ROI to our clients here in Pakistan.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not super surprised it came from you. So the metrics I want to show are how good of a job that we're doing. So
Mm,
effort is one piece, but the effort comes out in the metric, right? So we always show every one of our clients exactly how many profiles we looked at
mm,
versus messaged. So it
mm,
does help to show like, oh wow, they're not just looking at 205 profiles and messaging 200, right?
mm,
We're actually looking at this huge volume, but what's their efficacy, right? Are they having to look at 3,000 candidates to message 200? In which case, yikes, are they
yeah.
really good at this? You know, so
Mm,
so that would be one that I think is super huge. I think the response rate is always going to be one of my top metrics to share with people because it shows your understanding of the market, of the candidates, of the job, and your capability of actually
mm,
putting forth quality messaging to attract people's attentions. And then as you go down the pipeline, I think you're looking at things like qualification calls versus submittals is really important. Submittals versus
mm,
interviews is really important because that's telling you how good you are at selling the opportunity and finding the
mm,
right candidates, and then how good you are at aligning the candidates with the job and the
yeah,
hiring manager. Sorry, when I
yeah,
say job.
yeah. Good job. Perfect, perfect. Thank you for the question. And next up, we have Jim. He's the 2020 Talent Innovator and Board President of ATAP. And Jim loves Sweden, so this is why I picked Jim. No,
I
kidding.
love JDA.
Yeah, yeah. For leaders, what are examples of bellwether metrics? What, if anything, would you add to Greg Savage's three C's KPIs for modern recruiters? Catchment, conversations, and conversions.
So, it's a great question. Thanks, JDA. You're totally throwing me off my game here.
Why
I saw
JDA? Ah, JDA.
Jim D'Amico. Yeah,
Not
yeah, yeah.
asking.
I'm
Not
a,
asking.
I'm a millennial. I can't. I shorten everything. I'm an
Yeah,
idiot.
not
So I'm not sure what bellwether metrics are, and Jim, you can yell at me on our next board call for that. I apologize. That's my bad. What would I add to the catchment, the conversations, and the conversions? I would probably also want to add. I'm trying to think if I can get a C word
a.
to exemplify this. Um,
Cost per
uh,
candidate if
we're
we
gonna
do the job board, the social media.
so yeah, I like cost, and then we can just spell the word quality with a C. But I think I would just turn that into candidate experience.
Yes.
CX is going to
Yeah.
be a big one, and there's so many different ways to measure that. Right? There's surveys, there's net promoter scores, there's turn rates, there's referrals, etc. But I think that those are going to be really important KPIs to tell
Mm,
you not just like are we doing the job, but like hey, how are we doing with this, right? Like, how's our
mm,
actual pulse on this? Are we a numbers company or are we a human company? So,
mm.
hopefully that answered your question, Jim. If not, you can just text me and I'll revise it real quick.
Yeah, you should. You guys have to make that up. That's on you guys. That's on
Yeah,
you guys.
that's right.
That's right. Okay, so time is unfortunately running up. We have a lot of more questions, Batman. But what about you and I? Spend some time in the comment section after the live stream just to
Sure.
answer quick ones that we have got in. And of course, guys, if you would like all the key takeaways from this session, comment summary, and we will include each of our KPIs and metrics, of course, and the periodic system for TA lovers, of course. So, how about we finish off this sesh with your two most important takeaways?
Mm.
Mm,
So my two most important takeaways would be the tactical piece. So as either a leader or a recruiter, focus on the things that you can control. And if you focus on making people better and assuming the best, that they're doing the best they can, they often are.
mm,
Whether you believe they are putting forth their top effort or not, you're right. It's a
Mm.
self-fulfilling prophecy. Believe in people and aspire to make them the best version of themselves. The second one is try. I know it's hard. Try and get comfortable with discomfort. The only way you're going to change and grow in any meaningful way is through discomfort. No one
Mm.
ever becomes the best through constant success. You can look at any story, go on YouTube, and just look it on YouTube. You'll have all these
Yeah.
videos showing you this. This is not a comfortable process. It's still we're deep into it, and it's still not comfortable at times with this growth and change. But
Mm.
understand that if you stick with it, it will become easier, and you will be at the leading edge of the industry for what you're doing. People will follow you, and you will be an actual leader, not a manager.
Ooh, mic drop. Mic basically drop. Wonder how many of those you get.
Just like
Yeah, drop it, drop it. Thank you so much. That those last words was like, the perfect way of summarize this. And I guess if people have questions or if they, could feel a bit uncomfortable using metrics and KPIs starting as of today, they can just reach out to any one of us, right?
that's right.
Yes, we'll
That's
find
right.
Mike Batman Cohen on LinkedIn, and you can find me, Sara Dalsfeld, on LinkedIn as well. And a big warm thank you to everyone watching today, and I'll see you in the next session. Bye bye.